Hello, this is Timothy Perfect from Twocanoes Software, and I wanted to show you some of the new features in MDS 1.6. Before I get started, I want to ask you to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done that, so just click on that big red button and subscribe. Also, just want to tell you what MDS is. MDS is a tool that runs on macOS that allows you to create resources that you can install macOS packages, scripts, and profiles from the recovery or from an external volume, so you can deploy and reset up or set up Macs very, very quickly. So let's go ahead and get started. The first new feature I want to talk about is the ability to host images from a web server. So if you can see this new option, serve images over HTTP from folder. So if I select a folder called images, or any folder, I put one in my home folder called images. There it is. And now if I click on this button for the web server, you can see that I have two images that are installed, that are available there. If I actually look in the Finder, I can see in that one, you can see these two ones are available. So now if I want to deploy in from the recovery partition, I can just get the URL here. So I'll copy that link, and you can see that it's http:// the name of the IP address and port, and then the name of the image. And I would just, in the recovery partition, use the HDIUtil command to mount that disk image from a web server and then run the workflow like I normally do. So this is a great way to be able to just drop images in, go to another machine, and be able to start setting them up right from there. So it's a great new feature, be able to host images right from MDS. The next major feature is the ability to do first boot scripts. So if you have a workflow, I'll just give this a name, new workflow, and you're not installing macOS. So you do not select install macOS. You're just going to run the packages installation right from the recovery partition. And a lot of people like to do this because that means they're using the OS that's installed on their Mac already. So if you get a bunch of new machines, it already has 10, 14, 4 on it. You don't need to upgrade it, or you have some other system that updates it. You just want to install the applications that you need. So now there's a new option that allows you to, well, there's two new options. One is that if you select the packages, so let me select a folder for my packages, and I have one on the desktop called MDS Resources, and in there are packages. Then installs two packages, boot runner and a boot runner license. And I can either do this when running the workflow, which means that it gets installed from Imager, which we don't want to do, but we want to do it on first boot. What that means is that once you run the workflow, it won't install those packages, but it'll put them in a folder so that the first time you reboot, it'll go into a mode over the login window or before the setup of system starts, and it'll actually install those packages. Then I'll reboot again. So it's a great way to use packages that expects to be running in a Mac OS that it's booted from. That's also true for scripts and profiles as well. So if I go in here and I choose scripts, and so now I can go in here and I can add the same options after first boot package is installed. So that means after it reboots, installs those first boot packages, and then it's going to run the scripts. Okay, the next one is profiles, and we have the exact same thing. We go ahead and select the profiles folder. I just have a single profile, and I'll say that one's after first boot packages are installed. So that's great. And if you're not erasing the disk and installing macOS, or just not installing macOS, you get this new checkbox where it says after running workflow, restart or shut down. So we can automatically have it run the workflow, set those packages up to be installed, and reboot. Then the Mac installs those packages, reboots again, and it's all ready to be handed out to the user. So that's a great new feature in MDS 1.6. The next new feature I wanted to focus on or show you is that when you automatically ran a workflow, like we had this one running it, it would choose the first Mac volume that was available or one that was named Mac-HD. So if you want to be a bit more granular and have it choose a volume that you have named, so you can say, I want to have this select one that's called Mac HD. So it only select that volume if it does it. So it'll do automatically. It will select that volume. So that's a great another new feature of MDS 1.6. Another one is rename a volume. So If you want to, when you're actually erasing it, so if we go into workflow and we want to say we want to erase and install, we now have the option to erase the volume and say I want to have this volume called, I have to select the installer, and we'll do Mojave, and I'll have the erased volume and we'll call this Macintosh, all right, TCS Mac. So now we'll erase and install for that Mac. The next new feature is variables. So variables is an exciting new feature. So one of the things that we had before is the ability to select to name the computer when you're running the workflow. So you run the workflow and it'd prompt, hey, what's the computer name? And the tech would type it in, and it would use that in the scripts to set the computer name. We took that one step further in MDS 1.6, and we have variables here. So we can set variables. This doesn't actually set the variables. This just gives a description. So you might want to prompt them for IP address and maybe the subnet. Or maybe you want to do the building and the room. So you put these in, and what happens is that when you run the workflow, it'll prompt the tech for all these different informations. So prompt them for IP address, and whatever the user types in or the tech types in for the IP address, it'll populate it in a variable called MDS _ var1. And then that information will be passed to your scripts, which then can use that information to do whatever configuration you need. So you can populate these, and it'll show those. It'll ask you for that information. The next piece I'll show you, so as we go through how this actually looks on the other end when we're actually setting up a machine. So let me switch over to another Mac and actually host that out. Okay, so now I'm on a Mac Mini, a new T2 Mac Mini that I boot into the recovery partition. And first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually mount the disk image that I uploaded, that new workflow one. So I'll do HDI util mount http://192.168.1.156, and it was port 888, and the image was called new workflow.dmg. So there it goes, it's mounted. So that's being served off of MDS on my MacBook Pro, my primary machine that's running MDS. And now all I need to do is just under MDS resources, I'll do the run command. And that will start up Imager and allow me to select my workflow. And it should automatically run. I didn't actually rename the hard drive Mac HD. So what we're expecting is that Imager will come up, see if it can find the Mac HD, and if it can, it'll fail, but then it'll still give me the opportunity to run it. So I want to show that to you as well. So it's starting up. Okay, it came up and it showed the errors I expected, so I'll just say okay. And you can see that the hard drive is named Mac-HD, so that was expected to fail because it couldn't find the right one. That's actually a good one, so you don't actually erase any data. I have my new workflow here, so I'll say run workflow. It'll prompt me, are you sure you want to do it? Now it's going to prompt me for the things that I asked it to. And so I asked for IP address. This actually isn't going to set the IP address. It's just going to set those variables. And so I can put anything in here, but I'll put 192.168.1.100 and subnet 255.0, and then building, and we'll say it's building A, room 101. All right, so that means those variables are now going to be populated, so you can use them in your own scripts to do whatever you want it to do, whether or not it's push it up to a web server, set some local file or setting on the Mac. But those are just prompted, and now you can specify those to use them in your own scripts. All right, the next thing I'm going to show you is that you can see it's copying the packages for install on the first boot. This will allow us that when we reboot this machine, you'll actually see it setting up the packages to install Boot Runner on the next boot. So it didn't actually erase the drive. It's just installing the packages to do it for next boot. So it finished, and now it's rebooting. And you should see when it comes up, it'll start installing the packages. All right, you can see here that it pulls up this log window, and it's actually installing those packages. It'll actually run the scripts, pass those variables to them, and then once it's completed, it'll reboot and it'll go back into that OS, right back into that same target drive, and everything will be installed. There we go. Now it's completely set up. A couple things to note is that since I already installed this on a drive and didn't erase it, it actually already had Boot Runner in it. So it actually installed Boot Runner twice, but it did show that it was installing it, but it also showed that it ran that login window, ran that log window over the login window and actually over Boot Runner as well. So it really doesn't matter what the state of the hard drive is, as long as it has an OS on it, it'll be able to run those scripts and install them. So thank you very much for watching. Those are the kind of the high-level new features of MDS 1.6. We actually have some other features as well, some smaller features, but the variables, using the web server to host it, the first boot scripts, renaming the volume, specifying the target volume and imager are all some really exciting features that I think folks have been asking for these, and it's going to be exciting to see people use them when they're playing their Macs. So thank you for watching, and be sure to check back and for more different videos, as well as go to Twocanoes.com to get the latest information on MDS and other software. Thank you for watching.